to Frickety Frack Ouija Talk Back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name's Patrick, and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack Ouija Talk Back is a show where I discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. So I'm going to be going through an episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes and connect it to teachings from the Bible. The name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So we're going over the 9th episode, Mom Descends. So from the get-go in this episode, one of the things I love is Koichi's mom's quirk. It's listed as fly swatting in the episode, and just basically within a certain distance, I guess it doesn't. They don't really specify. She can swat a person using her quirk and not using her hand. Like her hand will do the motion, but then they'll swat the other person. So here's kind of one of my questions. She actually would have a pretty decent, especially if she trained it up, to be a pretty decent hero quirk. So there's a lot to unpack there. But anyways, it's also the perfect mom slash parent quirk. I mean, there have been any number of times when I was in one part of the house or the room and my kids were acting up and I just wanted to, swat them, with love. But it was just like, oh my gosh, if there was a parent quirk ever, it was that one. It was great. And then, and this all starts because, Koichi's mom, wants to meet his girlfriend, and Makoto and Pop both try to fill that role, and not even for a second does Koichi's mom buys it, but she does like Makoto, and so she even throughout the whole episode, she's like, one of my favorite parts is when she says, "Oh, can I trade you for Koichi?" And then at the end of the episode, she's like, if my son's not, worthy of you, but please consider actually dating him and becoming my daughter-in-law. And, it's just, a fun little moment. And I remember in different times in my family's life when they were, members of my family were dating someone else, and we all joked about, like, we trade you for that person. I've had these conversations with, uh, with my family members, paramours, and it, is always funny and teasing and good nature, but also slightly true. But anyway, and Koichi's mom is struggling with this whole setup, not understanding what's going on until Knuckle Duster comes in and he saves the day with a story about gathering, people who help volunteer and want to help with, uh, not necessarily heroes, but, the work that heroes don't really do. So it's a great cover story because it's, for the most part, actually true in a sense. But the best part of Knuckle Duster's arrival is the humor between Makoto and Koichi's mom, both drooling over him. And so it's just one of those just funny moments when, when women compete, drooling over the guy, and he's fairly oblivious to it, but it's also one of those things where it's just really funny. Really, just very enjoyable in that moment. So after Koichi's mom is kind of, made to feel better about Koichi's situation and the way he's living his life, uh, they go shopping in the area, and Makoto joins them and is there, and Koichi's just trying to be zen during the whole thing, and but he's very excited to find a new All Might hoodie, a special edition one that he doesn't have before, and so he purchases that. And then everything goes haywire when they're on the bus heading back home, and a cat is given trigger, and um, in this process joins bodies with the bus, and so it becomes a cat bus. And I have to say, there have been a ton of crazy things that have happened in My Hero Academia, but a cat bus is definitely at the top of the list. There are so many crazy things that have happened in the My Hero Academia anime, and there are some crazy things to come in My Hero Academia Vigilantes. But still, to this day, the top craziest thing that have ever happened is the cat bus. We get the return of Ingenium and his team. And one of the things that I really like about seeing Ingenium and really the work in My Hero Academia Vigilantes, different from My Hero Academia, is that as of right now, they're showing a lot more rescue hero work and not as much into combat. Now, there is combat and fighting, and which is all choreographed really well. But because of Koichi's Quirk set and Pop set and Knuckle Duster being quirkless, the fighting isn't as villains is as important to them as it is as rescuing people, especially since two of the three people on the team are really there to rescue people instead of fight. And so it's really great to see this how this rescue work happens in the My Hero world. It's just really well done, and I love seeing Ingenium come back. But then, of course, one of the shining moments in this entire episode is when Ingenium launches himself past the bus to catch Koichi and Makoto, but he is just out of reach. And in that moment, his powers level up. He gets able to launch himself, and then and he tries to repeat it later and in a training exercise and can only get a few inches off the ground under extreme strain. And so it was just really great that he's starting to train that and to see what new level his abilities could be at. All right, so that was the different things that I wanted to talk about in this episode. And so the biblical lesson comes from Psalm chapter 127, verse 3. It says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward." So when I was thinking about this episode and I read this verse, it made me really struggle with Koichi's mom. And now, don't get me wrong, she is not the worst parent in all of anime and even all of media. There's the dad from My Hero, or not My Hero Academia, from Full Metal Alchemist, who makes a chimera out of his family dog and his daughter. That's a whole other thing. He's the worst. And uh and so but I do struggle because Koichi's mom, what she's trying to do, she's trying to keep her kid grounded in reality, but also she was scared of his power, because we get to see a moment in the episode where he's flying around as a baby. And so her fly swatting quirk was the perfect way to keep him grounded. And she kind of keeps this manipulative control over him, trying to keep him down on the earth, not trying to reach for the stars, and thinks it's silly for him to want to be a hero because in her eyes, he's just not up to snuff. And so I thought about this verse, and I'm a parent, I'm a father, and I struggle in wanting to be the best godly parent that I can be. And so Koichi's mom really struggles with trying to encourage his dream to be a hero or to even help or really kind of do anything beyond just be like a mid-level businessman or something like that. And so my kids have dreams and my parents knew that I had dreams. And so where do we find that balance and where we encourage them to pursue their dreams, but while also keeping them grounded? And so for me, I had all these aspirations and my parents, but now granted, this happened only for a little while because by the time I turned 12, I received my call to ministry. And so ever since that moment, I knew I was going to be a pastor. And so they encouraged me in that dream. But before that, I was all over the place. I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. Just so you know, I'm 5'10" and I cannot jump very well. And so, and kids, all kids have get these kind of lofty dreams. And, uh, and so my parents, they helped me, they helped me understand what it's going to take to play sports at a higher level, even going beyond high school. And so they would ask questions, and ask me questions like, how can you make this work? Like, if now this was never my dream, but if my dream was to be an actor or something like that, I was like, okay, well, what are you going to do until you make your break? What would, uh, what are you doing to make this dream happen? Like they would ask these questions. They wouldn't say, you're not going to be able to do it. You can't do it. Don't do it. They're asking me the questions, how to make it work. Now, one of the best things about my parents is that they're both engineers, so they can be very logical and they can see the steps to make it somewhere, and to a certain degree. And so they would ask me these questions while not once saying, "You can't do it. You can't do it." They would let me come to that understanding on my own. And so Koichi's mom just never views him as someone who's making the right decisions because they weren't the decisions she was making. And so for me, as a parent, I view my children as people with limitless potential that they could do, uh, anything, really. And so my job is to not say, no, you can't do that. Be like, well, how are you going to get that done? What steps do you need to make? And ask these questions, because it's my belief that any child or anyone who comes under your wing, uh, be it as you being a guardian, them as a student, you might be a college professor or something like that. And you have students come and say, like, these are my dreams. Instead of being like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't. That's never going to happen for you. Instead, we should be encouraging, guiding them, asking them the right questions to help them figure out how to make that dream a reality. But really, the most important part is to view the people who come under our wings as someone who's a blessing from God. And for many people, uh, you could be the first person that viewed them as anyone with a future. We think about, Koichi, his mom doesn't even really think he has a future. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from her, or wants him to stay on the ground. Instead, he's got the hero's spirit in a way, and she doesn't want him to have that. And so Knuckle Duster was the first person who really kind of, told him, was like, you can be a hero. And so that's why he's latched on to him, and that because Knuckle Duster won't leave, but that's a whole other thing. But so if you could come across someone who's looking for encouragement, you might in fact be the first person that encourages them in ways that they had never been encouraged before. And so I want you to do that. It's to see potential students, disciples, wards under your wing as gifts from God, and encourage them, help them grow, because someone helped you grow. But if you have not received that, then give that to someone else as well, so that they don't feel what you felt, because you could be the person that helps them on their dream. Amen. All right, so how am I going to rate this episode? This episode was good. I can't even really go on about the animation because this is just standard great animation in these episodes. By episode 9, you would think that the episodes would start getting sloppier, not quite as crisp, but they're quite good. And so the animations is his great self. So I don't even really want to talk about that. The character moments in this episode are wonderful. The relationship between Koichi and Pop uh, gets a little extra layer of depth. Makoto gets kind of thrust into a deeper relationship with her and Koichi. especially with Makoto discovering that Koichi is the crawler, and uh, and the comedy moments and Cat Bus. So when I think about this episode, I really thought it was a 4.5, but Cat Bus takes it over the edge and makes it a perfect 5. Uh, so this is a great episode. Got to watch it. It's fantastic. Cat Bus is fantastic. Great moment. All right. So anyone with questions for me about the biblical lessons that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf, or at frickityfrack on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. I am also on Blue Sky. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Remember that I love you. Most importantly, God loves you. And go beyond plus ultra.